The guest of Ազատություն TV studio in Yerevan is the U.S. Ambassador in Armenia, Lynne Tracy. Hi, Madam Ambassador. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for granting the interview in this, on this historical day. After decades, the U.S. President finally described the massacres of 1.5 million Armenians in the Ottoman Empire as genocide. The U.S. President Joe Biden used the term genocide twice, which, as we know, is being the term for describing the crime against humanity. We have now the situation in the U.S. where executive and legislative branches recognized the Armenian genocide. Madam Ambassador, you have been in Armenia for more than 2 years, 2.5 years, and you would know what does it mean for Armenians. What are your thoughts and feelings in the aftermath of U.S. recognition?
Well, thank you, Harry, for having me on the program. And it is a very historic day. The President's recognition, his statement on Saturday, and certainly it reflects, I think, the President's deep respect for the Armenian people, for the opportunity to make this statement an historical acknowledgement of what took place in 1915. The President has long had an interest and in this topic. I think it reflects his deep respect for the importance of universal human rights. And certainly personally, having been here for 2 years and hearing the expressions of appreciation from Armenians, I know that this meant a lot to them in seeing this day finally come.
Madam Ambassador, what happens next? Can this mean any legal consequences? A change of the U.S. policy towards NATO ally Turkey or towards Armenia? What we can see or what we can expect from the United States on this very, very difficult issue?
Well, with respect to legal liabilities, the events of the Armenian genocide took place in 1915. The Genocide Convention did not come into force until 1951, and our understanding is that from a legal perspective, the convention is not applied retroactively in terms of legal liability. But with respect to the U.S. relationship with Turkey, Turkey is a NATO ally, an important ally of the United States, but the Biden administration has also made very clear that the disagreements that the United States and Turkey have will need to be managed very effectively.
Do you expect any push from the Washington to Turkey, you know, to do some steps, important steps in terms of restoring diplomatic relations with Armenia and opening the borders? Are there any plans? Are you aware of any? It has been always the case, by the way, during, you know, even the previous administrations had this kind of policy, but some of them were implementing them, trying, pushing hard, some of them not. What we can expect now from Biden administration?
Well, I think you're right in noting that there has long been an interest in promoting reconciliation between Armenia and Turkey and a broader reconciliation in the region, the kind of reconciliation that can help bring about a more enduring peace and stability that would be to the benefit of everyone in the region: Armenia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia. This is a very important issue. But at the same time, it is also clear that there are some immediate issues that need to be addressed from the post-conflict situation. This is a place where the Minsk Group can play a very important role. And Secretary Blinken, in his confirmation hearing, committed to reinvigorating the U.S. role in the Minsk Group as a co-chair so that we can help with that effort to bring about a lasting peace. But there are, as I said, some very clear immediate issues that will need to be addressed, hopefully through the Minsk Group, so that we can get at the bigger issue of reconciliation.
Madam Ambassador, during the war, high-level U.S. officials talked to Pashinyan, and the foreign minister issued several statements, called both sides to reach a ceasefire, but the U.S. failed in stopping the war, and despite these efforts, and Russia managed to do it. Is it because U.S. had lost its interest in the region, or Russia became more powerful? What can you say about this?
Well, certainly, I think if you'll recall, there were several attempts to broker ceasefires that were not successful, including a first one by Russia, and then, of course, France and the United States. And there's no doubt that the importance of the Russian role in bringing a halt to the fighting, but that is all that, in terms of a very concrete action that took place, the fighting is stopped, but what we see is that there are still some very critical issues to be addressed. The status of Nagorno-Karabakh, the issues of displaced persons. So there are a number of issues that still very much remain on the table, on the agenda for the United States and the other Minsk Group co-chairs, and we intend to stay engaged on those issues.
So now Russians and even Azeris and Turks would say that, you know, this conflict is over. There is nothing, you know, for OSCE Minsk Group left. But as you said, you know, Nagorno-Karabakh status is still hanging on air, and it should be resolved. This is the most important key issue that keeps this conflict alive. Without solving Nagorno-Karabakh status, we cannot claim that the conflict has been solved. What is your analysis? What's your take on this issue? And for example, Russians came there, and they are now peacekeepers in Russia, in Nagorno-Karabakh, and they will stay there for 5 years, and then maybe they will prolong it for another 5 years. Is this somehow, you know, is this good for the region? What do you think?
Well, Harry, I think that it's again, and it's extremely complex scenario. It's one that I think is not within the capability of any one country to resolve. That's why we have the platform of the Minsk Group co-chairs. And when you look at the range of issues to be tackled, of course, security is the #1 issue. And it's not just security for Nagorno-Karabakh. I was just in Syunik last week. This was my 4th trip to Syunik, my first one after the conflict. And I certainly saw the effects of the conflict that have come home to Armenians in Syunik with a very large presence of military on the road, Armenian, Azerbaijani, and Russian, because of the border and where it is placed now on a major roadway. I met with displaced persons who are still in need of assistance. And this is a place that the United States has been very engaged. We were one of the first to deliver assistance to help those who were displaced from Nagorno-Karabakh, as well as inside Nagorno-Karabakh. As I said, this is an ongoing situation. And then there's just the questions of the economy. And again, I had the chance to see a number of businesses. Some are actually showing some promise, but others need help. And so, as I said, it's very complex. And I think this is why it is going to require a lot of very intensive effort from the Friends of Armenia. And I would note there are other Western countries. The EU is very involved. And that's what it's going to take, a concerted effort to help with these long-term issues of bringing about stability and peace to Armenia and to the region.
Now, Turkey is a NATO ally, as you said, as everybody knows, which often operates against the spirit of the alliance. For example, in the Mediterranean, and last year Ankara openly sided with Azerbaijan in the war against Armenia, and despite several statements by the U.S. High-level officials that it should help stop the war, not trigger the war. How is U.S. is dealing with this issue? Are we raising this issue with Turks or not?
Well, Harry, I would just point again to what I said earlier. The President, his administration has made it very clear. Turkey is a valued ally, a NATO ally, but we have disagreements, and there is a real need to manage those disagreements effectively. The President has spoken with, President Biden has spoken with President Erdogan, and there have been a series of other conversations at very high levels, and I expect that those will continue.
Mm-hmm. And now the other issue, U.S. military aid to Armenia. The issue here is that there is no parity. Years ago, I remember U.S. Congress was always careful watching to make sure that there's a parity in military aid to Armenia and Azerbaijan. But that's like almost a decade ago. Then something happened and Azerbaijan started to get millions of dollars, tens of millions, now 100 million, 100 million. And Armenia gets only a couple of millions for demining purposes. And after the war, after all this destruction and suffering caused by Azerbaijan, the U.S. is still will be helping Baku. And how would you explain this? Will Armenia get at least equal amount of military aid, or some U.S. advanced technological weapons? Is that possibility, Madam Ambassador?
Harry, I think the assistance that you are referring to for Azerbaijan is not military aid. It is counterterrorism assistance that is designed to help with securing the border that Azerbaijan has with Iran, and some of the concerns that the United States and Azerbaijan share over counterterrorism issues. And with respect to U.S. aid to Armenia, military aid, I just need to remind you that that Armenia is a member of the CSTO. It is not a organization that the United States is a party to, and so that membership that Armenia has in CSTO does place some very significant limitations on the military aid that we can provide. We are not providing any high-level technology to Azerbaijan through our border security, our counterterrorism cooperation. But with Armenia, what we are doing that is very important in the sphere of military and security cooperation is doing things together, such as peacekeeping in Afghanistan, in Kosovo, and in other locations, and we have been working together to help train and enhance the capability of the Armenian military's medical capabilities. We are looking forward to continuing to participate in exercises that help develop those kinds of capabilities even further. We have other exchanges in military training. So we'll continue to do as much as we can in those spheres, particularly peacekeeping, where Armenia's contributions are very appreciated. But in terms of military sales and aid, as I said, there are some limitations because of Armenia's membership in CSTO.
I remember Ambassador Bolton, when he came to Armenia, he was suggesting that, you know, he would say that U.S. American weapons are much more advanced and much better than the Russian one. And he reportedly offered some, you know, Armenian side to buy U.S. weapons. Is there any truth in that report or not, or is it exaggeration?
Well, I don't think I can, you know, add anything right now to what Ambassador Bolton had to say in a trip that was nearly 3 years ago. I think that what, you know, we're doing is continually assessing where the opportunities are between the United States and Armenia to expand our cooperation and our partnership, where we see the possibilities to work together, including in the sphere of security cooperation. We're going to try to promote those opportunities and take advantage of them.
Like sophisticated surveillance equipment, or I don't know, I think that's also a possibility. Training is another area, I think. That expanding training opportunity for Armenian young soldiers in the U.S. academies, you know, it will be very, very interesting area for cooperation. And what do you think, Madam Ambassador? Is that a possibility? Is that a doable?
Absolutely. In fact, we have programs along those lines already in place. One of our premier training programs, the International Military Education Training, which allows officers from Armenia to go and train at premier U.S. military institutions, is something that is ongoing and that we very much encourage the Ministry of Defense to take advantage of.
There is huge destruction in the war zone, and tens of millions of dollars are needed in that to reconstruct Nagorno-Karabakh. Do you think U.S. aid is possible for solving this issue?
Well, certainly we have received the appeal that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued very recently. We are reviewing the requests very carefully. No decisions have been made. But getting this kind of information, getting on-the-ground assessments will be extremely important. And just let me again reinforce what I said earlier. We are also looking at how we can assist Armenia, because Armenia also sustained some very big impacts from the conflict. Particularly in Syunik, but we also know that besides the conflict, the pandemic has taken a toll on businesses, and so one of the areas that our USAID mission is focusing on is how we can promote and help economic growth in Armenia. We're looking at things like workforce training to help people shift their skills to meet the demands of the 21st century. It's a project that's also designed to help veterans who've been wounded to find new skills to allow them to be employed. So yes, Nagorno-Karabakh is certainly under consideration, but I want to emphasize that Armenia is as well.
Mm-hmm. And some analysts think that Armenia lost to some extent its sovereignty when Russians moved in to Nagorno-Karabakh, and also they have their plans to expand military presence in Armenia by opening some other, bases in Syunik. Do you have concerns that this could undermine Armenian sovereignty, Madam Ambassador?
Well, certainly it's been a guiding principle since the breakup of the Soviet Union that the United States has been interested in promoting the sovereignty of the successor states, including Armenia. And that's why you've seen the United States over the last 30 years investing $2 billion in Armenia in a whole range of areas. We think that while obviously Russia is a partner for Armenia in certain spheres, such as the military, as we discussed, we also think it's important that Armenia has options, has choices, has diversity in its economy, in its energy sphere, so that it can make the kinds of choices that are in the best interests of Armenians.
Madam Ambassador, let's talk about the state of democracy in Armenia. It is obvious that the war had a huge impact on the state of democracy. There are some concerns that we can go back to square one where everything has been starting. Do you think that the things can go wrong, or you think that democratic institutions are strong enough? Or what do you think? And we have snap elections very soon. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, Harry, I think it is very important for any democracy to continue to work at strengthening its institutions, building resilience. I've been impressed with how Armenia has moved forward in the post-conflict months. There have been, over the last 3 years, some very important areas of partnership and progress between Armenia and the United States in areas of reform, especially on anti-corruption that we've worked together on. We're working with Armenia to help stand up a new police patrol program. These are institutions that underpin a democracy. And so in these areas, I see a lot of hope and promise that we'll continue to see a very strong democracy in Armenia. But obviously, as I said, it's important for any democracy not to take things for granted. We have the elections coming up, as you noted. This is something we'll be following closely. USAID will be providing some technical assistance to the Central Election Commission, as well as helping with voter information. And at the end of the day, what we certainly hope to see is that Armenia is able, in its elections, the conduct of its elections, to meet that very good high bar that it set in 2018, to meet it or even exceed it. And we think that with the focus of Armenia's international partners on these issues, that's very achievable.
Madam Ambassador, now when we approaching to this snap elections, it's on June 20th, and it's there's only a little time is left. The first item on people's mind, I think, is security. People are scared. They are afraid that, Azeris can attack again, or Turks can just, violate the border, attack Armenia. These are real worries and concerns. What can you say about this?
Well, absolutely. In this post-conflict situation, I certainly understand the security concerns of Armenians. I hear from Armenians myself directly with respect to the worries that you outlined. And what I think we will see in this election is an opportunity for candidates to talk about how they intend to help secure Armenia's future. That's what a free and fair election is about. It's about an opportunity for candidates to put their ideas on the table and let the people decide. And that's what we hope to see on June 20th.
Madam Ambassador, most of them would say that the best way to, for Armenia's security, to strengthen Armenia's security is to deepen ties with Russia. This is like, generally accepted, idea that everybody is floating around. But I think that, United States also is a big player here in the region, and we see that Biden's administration is coming back and is back again to South Caucasus. What would you say about this? I think the United States should be also a factor of Armenia's security. Isn't the case?
Well, absolutely. And security, of course, there is military security, but there is also other kinds of security. There is economic security. There's a security in having strong, resilient institutions of governance that are deeply rooted in integrity and have a strong basis in ethical considerations. And so these are areas that the United States can contribute to help partner with Armenia on, to grow the economy, to help continue strengthening its institutions of governance so that the kinds of concerns that Armenians had in 2018 about corruption are addressed. But Armenia, there is nothing stopping Armenia from having multiple partners, and that goes back to my point about diversity. I think it's more concerning to see an overdependence on one particular partner, and so we think that we have a role to play here, and we would like to be able to continue working in these areas of good governance and economic growth.
Mm-hmm. And most Armenians believe that with the recognition of Armenian genocide by the U.S., Armenia is more safer now. Would you agree with that?
Well, certainly the Biden administration is looking very much at this region. I think the president's statement on Saturday was one reflection of that, but I would also point to the March 5th call that Secretary Blinken had with Prime Minister Pashinyan. We've had conversations taking place at other levels between officials at the State Department and the Foreign Ministry. We also have very strong relationships through the USAID activities with a number of not just government partners, but local partners in business and in civic organizations. And so I think continuing to build that network of relationships, the partnership, that's what keeps the United States and Armenia grounded in a partnership of a positive agenda, of a partnership that is rooted in shared values, such as our I think both very strong desire to fight corruption. So I think we have a lot to work with between our two countries.
Madam Ambassador, thank you very much for this interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.